Dylan Pierre, and I'm going to be giving my presentation on Brownsville, Texas, and my analysis of their annual comprehensive financial report. Some of the questions that I'll be answering include: does the city have enough money to pay its bills as they come due? Does the city have financial problems? What are the city's revenue sources? What does the city spend its money on? And what was something that surprised me or was a special interest? The annual comprehensive financial report for Brownsville had part of its activities split into component units. I included these in my calculations when applicable, of course, throughout this presentation because I felt the presentation would be lacking without this additional info. So it's for those reasons why I included it. The cash balance for governmental activities was roughly 106 million. The cash balance for business type activities was 7.4 million roughly. Cash balance for Public Utilities Board, roughly 47 million. And then, of course, if you added all three of those up, you would get the total government-wide cash balance of 160,508,707. Brownsville ACFR classified liabilities due within 1 year as non-current liabilities. Since these liabilities are technically current by definition, I thought it necessary to include these amounts in my calculations. I have an illustrative example of this on the next slide as well. Current liabilities for government activities totaled to 92.9 million roughly. Current liabilities for business type activities totaled to 16.2 million roughly. Current liabilities for Public Utilities Board and total to almost roughly 97 million. And then total government-wide current liabilities is, of course, all of those added up, totaling 206,666,250. Here is a slide that I mentioned explaining what I was talking about these liabilities being due within 1 year, classified as non-current liabilities. So these are included with all these. How I found the current liabilities, I just subtracted these highlighted amounts from the amounts in between the bars for each column, and that's how I found all the values in the last column. So I just wanted to include that slide for a little bit of illustrative purposes. Current and quick ratios. So the current ratio just includes all of the current assets that the company has, totaling to roughly 420 million, close to it. Current liabilities, as we found on the last slide, 206,666,000. As you can see, the current liabilities are the same for down here in the quick ratio as well. The difference between the current and the quick ratio, I know the quick ratio typically includes receivables and investments, but I decided only to use cash and cash equivalents for the numerator to demonstrate that the city does not have enough of these highly liquid assets to cover current liabilities. So if you look at all of their current assets, including investments and receivables and stuff like that, then they have more than enough to cover their liabilities. In fact, 2 times over. But the quick ratio, this is their total amount of cash and cash equivalents, so they have less of that than 206 million. So in the case that they don't have enough just cash and cash equivalents to cover their current liabilities, but they're pretty close. I mean, in just cash and cash equivalents, and they do have enough current assets to cover. So the Government Finance Officers Association recommends that general purpose governments maintain an unrestricted budgetary fund balance in their general fund at a minimum of 2 months of regular general fund operating revenues or regular general fund operating expenditures. So I decided to use revenues. The unrestricted fund balance for 2025 was 47.5 million roughly. The total general fund revenues plus transfers in was roughly 153 million. Since 47.5 million is much more than 25.5 million, I calculated the 25.5 million. I did the total general fund revenues plus transfers in, and then I just multiplied that by 212 since I didn't have a total, I didn't have a monthly revenue amount. So that's how I figured that amount. So as we can see, Brownsville, according to this, Brownsville is in line with the GFOA's recommendation here. Government-wide unrestricted net position. So the government-wide unrestricted net position doesn't paint the best picture because it's a pretty large deficit. Not really considering, but it is large enough. Just this indicates that the city has a large amount of its worth coming from special and capital projects with funds intended for specific purposes and not available for just any kind of use because their total net position is positive and actually quite indicative of a well-running city government. And this is just these are just their just unrestricted, just the stuff that can be spent on anything, and many of their assets are restricted funds and stuff like that. Does the city have enough money to pay its bills as they come due? Yes, I believe the city does have enough money to pay their bills. I say this because they have much more current assets than they do current liabilities, as indicated by the current ratio. They are in line with the GFOA's recommendation of maintaining an unrestricted fund balance that exceeds 2 months of general fund operating revenues and transfers. And these are all good indicators that the city has enough money to pay their bills as they come due. Moving on to the next question that I'm going to focus on. Does the city have financial problems? The first thing I want to discuss was bond rating. So the city maintains an AA plus general obligation bond rating given by Standard & Poor's Investor Service. This rating indicates a very good. This is a very good bond rating. It is only one step below the best bond rating that Standard & Poor's gives out. This high of a bond rating indicates that the city has a very strong ability to pay debt with minimal risk of defaulting. So that's a good sign. So this slide covers government-wide overall net position. So overall net position for 2024 was roughly 437 million, as you can see here. Overall net position for 2025, it increased by almost 30 million. As you can see, here is the 2024, and then here is the 2025. The positive amount in both years reflects a strong, sustainable financial foundation for the city. This shows that its total assets and deferred outflows exceed its total liabilities and deferred inflows, and that it has sufficient resources to meet current and future obligations. The $25 million increase from 2024 indicates the company's overall net position is only getting better as the city develops, which is a really good sign. Debt changes. So in 2024, the total liabilities totaled to roughly 404,805,000, and then in total liabilities in 2025 they totaled 577,840,000 roughly. While the substantial increase in debt may cause worry for concern, certain factors must be taken into consideration. For instance, the city is growing and growth costs money. A large amount of the city's debt comes from bonds payable. Since bonds payable are typically issued to pay for capital projects to better the city in some way, it is safe to say that this increase in debt can be considered a good thing to the politicians running the city as well as the citizens paying tax within it. Does the city have financial problems? No, the city does not have financial problems. I say this because, one, the city has a fantastic bond rating. Two, the city has a positive increase in net position. And then last, their debt increase is mainly attributable to bonds payable, and bonds payable indicate city growth and expansion. There's nothing wrong with increasing your debt if you're putting it towards things that are going to increase your worth in the end. Next question I wanted to focus on are what are the city's revenue sources? So I decided to only focus on the top three largest revenue sources in the governmental activities column. That there wasn't very much going on in the business type activities, so I didn't emphasize as much of that as I did the governmental activities. So I included a little graph here to show what I meant by the top three. As you can see, these are the biggest chunks. Um, so I just wanted to focus on those the most. So property tax revenue increased from roughly 61.5 million to 66.6 million. This indicates roughly an 8% increase from 2024. Sales tax revenue increased from roughly 45.6 million to roughly 47 million, which indicates roughly a 3% increase from 2024. Charges for service revenue increased from 24 million to 30.7 million. This indicates roughly a 28% increase from 2024, which is that's a pretty good increase in my opinion. The highest increase in revenues from business type activities is capital grants and contributions, which increased by 141%, which is a pretty substantial increase for one column to have, which I thought was pretty interesting. Moving on to the next question, what does the city spend its money on? So I included a graph here to help illustrate this a little bit. With the top, as in the slide before, I only included the top three expenses: public safety, public works, general government. As you can see, all these other expenses, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they just weren't that much. Public safety expenses increased from 76.2 million to 83.2 million roughly. This indicates roughly an 8% increase from 2024. Public works expenses increased from 23.7 million to 25.8 million. This indicates roughly an 8% increase from 2024. And then general government expenses increased from 37.7 million to 45.4 million roughly. Which indicates roughly a 20% increase from 2024. As I did before, I only decided to focus on the business type activity that had the largest increase in expenses. Instead of doing three, I only did one, just like the last slide. The highest increase in expenses from business type activities is the landfill, which increased by 40% from 2024. Moving on. To the last question, what was something that surprised me or was of special interest? I certainly found it interesting that the city spent over $1 million in animal control expenses and ended up being over budget by the end of the year, actually by $100,000, which is crazy to me. I also found it interesting that the city spent almost $500,000 in pest control as well. I could see that for the whole state of Texas, but one state or one city is a lot. It makes me wonder who the person is that gets to decide between the definition of a pest and a wild animal. Overall, this presentation has helped me to, the reason I said for picking this city was I wanted to move there, and this presentation has definitely helped solidify that goal.